Alright mate, how you doing? Welcome back to another video. It's time for my Who Won Transfer Window video. We try and do these every year where I just look at all the business done by all the clubs in the Premier League and see who's won the proverbial transfer window competition. We're going to use a tier list for this video. We're going to use these categories. Elite window, which is the best window you can possibly have. Double decent, which is twice as good as decent. Decent, average at best, some concerns, and then bottom is stinker. You do not want to be in that category. It means you've messed up your window. You're going to need a window cleaner. But before we get into the video, remember this. It's not just about who you've bought or who you've sold. It's about who you've kept. It's about how much you've spent for the players you've bought, how much you've got for the players you've sold. Is your team better, your starting 11 particularly, better than it was at the start of the window? Are you getting value for money? Should we crack on with it then? Actually, you know what? Before we do, you like these new hashtag kits? Brand new home kit, brand new away kit. Hummel never miss. I will give a home and an away kit to one person in the comments of this video that comments an accurate review of hashtag United's transfer window. Spoiler alert, we don't really have transfer windows at non-league. The window never closes. It's still open now. But if you don't know about the business we've done, go over to the hashtag channel, check it out, look at the squad update video. Let me know what sort of business you think me and devs have done. And the best review in the comments below will get a home and away shirt. Make sure you leave a way of contacting you though, or else I can't choose the winner. I can't physically talk to you and get your address and all that good stuff. Let's crack on. Okay, so we're going to work our way up the tier list here, starting off with the stinker category. And the first team I'm putting in the stinker category is Leicester. Perhaps no real surprise to many of you, but they've basically done nothing, have they? In terms of bringing people in, they brought one man in, and that was as a result of losing Fofana right at the end of the window. Maybe a panic buy. Maybe they had him lined up. You'd like to think they would have. If we skip over to this page here, we can see Leicester in more detail. Look, just two additions, and this is the man I'm talking about, Wout Face. I mean, he could be good, but he sounds like he's going to be awful. I'm going purely off a name there. That is a bit namist, I know. Cancel me. 15 mil, centre-back coming in as Fofana leaves. But look at this in section. There's basically no one in it. Two people. The out section is much bigger. Kasper Schmeichel gone. Yes, he's getting on a little bit, but I think I'm right in saying apart from Vardy, he was the only one left from the Premier League winning season. He's a leader in the dressing room. Big loss. Lots of other people that aren't that important. But Wesley Fofana's a big exit as well. 75 mil is a good price, don't get me wrong. Although many people will forget, Leicester did pay like 30 million for him when he was a relatively unknown player when they got him over from France. I think that's good money, but I think they obviously didn't want to lose him. They've lost that battle. They haven't got a ready-made replacement. Now listen, usually I give a lot of praise to Leicester in their transfer business because they've always got someone lined up. Like when they lost Chilwell, they brought in Justin. When they lost Maguire, they brought in Fofana. Maybe Wout Face is actually really good. Maybe he's going to be great. Maybe they look like they've had a blinder again. But it's just a lack of addition, you know? They nearly lost Tielemans as well. I don't think Brendan Rodgers is being backed. It's been well publicised. There's a money issue at Leicester. They've felt the effects of the pandemic. But we've seen other clubs invest. We've seen other teams' starting 11 get better. Leicester's 11 has got worse without any real additions of note. That is why Leicester are in the bottom section. From a business standpoint, the only thing Leicester have got going for them this window is that they've made almost 60 million. That money is needed for the running of the club. I don't know how much of it's going to be reinvested. So business-wise, they've done great business if their team stays around the same level. I don't think it's going to. The start of the Premier League has already shown us that. They could be in trouble. If they go down, that 60 million they've saved this year is not going to be enough. They're going to be in a problem area, and I worry for Leicester. I'm only going to put one other club in the stinker category, and that club is Bournemouth. Sorry, Bournemouth fans. I know I'd already predicted you guys to go down as well in my Premier League predictions video. That's one thing I want to talk about in this. Obviously, we've had a bit of the Premier League season now. Sometimes it's easy to look at how people's purchases have done. This should really be about the business in general. But of course, we've got a little bit more context now the season started. But Bournemouth, let's take a look at their business. Tavernier, 12.5 million from Middlesbrough. Rothwell, Fredericks from West Ham. Neto in goal is an option there. Senesi, Jack Stevens. None of those names are jumping out to me as proven Premier League talent. Yes, you could say Fredericks has played a lot in the Prem, but he never held down a starting place at West Ham. That is not a transfer window of a team that believes they're going to stay in the league or is even trying to stay in the league, in my opinion. Sure, they haven't lost anyone huge, but if you think you can just come up from the Championship with the team that got you up and stay in the Prem, how many teams have we seen fail at that before? Norwich, every single year. It's not going to be enough. I don't think they're going to stay in the league. We've already seen them suffer some heavy defeats. And it stinks of a lack of ambition. Now, I don't want to be too harsh on them, though, and say, you know, they haven't spent any money, therefore they're not ambitious. But sometimes it's better to have a slower approach. If you don't believe the team can stay in the league long term, you might be better off using that money to help the club. And I've got nothing against that if that's what they're doing. But I'm looking at this purely as a window to strengthen your team, and it's not been a good window for them. Okay, so that's my stinker category done. Moving on to the some concerns category. First team I'm going to put in there is another one of the newly promoted teams, Fulham. Let's take a look at their business. Okay, so Shane Duffy's come in from Brighton. Yes, played a fair bit in the Prem. Bern Leno from Fulham has also played a decent amount for Arsenal. 8 million's not a bad price, you have to say. Pereira for 10 mil isn't bad. Man United, he was never going to make it there, but he's got something about him, that's for sure. We've seen him get a couple of decent assists already this season. João Paulinho's been getting game time as well. Solomon's been injured, I know that. And Barbu's someone that people that play FIFA will know all about him. Is he as good in real life? Remains to be seen. Issa Diop, West Ham. Again, another centre-back like Duffy with a bit of Prem experience, but is he a sort of player that can definitely keep you in the league? And Willian is a big name signing 3-4 years ago. I'm not sure about him now. Kurtzova still hasn't played. Dan James isn't bad. I mean, this is better than Bournemouth's, which is why it's not in the same category as Bournemouth. We've seen a good start to Fulham's season, don't get me wrong. And I don't reckon, maybe with the exception of Willian, they've brought anyone in there with too big an ego. It's going to be a problem to manage, which can often happen with newly promoted teams. But I have concerns, which is I don't know if it's going to be enough. They're proving me wrong thus far. Mitrovic has also proven me wrong thus far. I'll give him that. But it's a long old season. Look at their outs as well. I mean, that's a big loss, isn't it, Fabio Carvalho? We've known about that one for a while. That was locked in a while back. But yeah, he was a big player for them. Fulham's net spend was about 37 million, which isn't an amount that should be ignored. It's a decent expenditure. But, you know, you could argue they need to spend a lot more to guarantee safety. But then they've spent 100 mil before and not stayed up. So what does guarantee safety? 200 mil? 300 mil? So I've got some concerns for Fulham, but I'm happy to be proved wrong. Next is Leeds. Now, some people might be surprised by this. Again, try not to be swayed too much by the start of the season. I'm looking at the business here, the business they've done. And yes, they have done some good business in terms of who they've brought in. We know they love the Americans. Tyler Adams, Brendan Aronson have come in. Mark Rocker doesn't look bad. Sinistera is probably the best purchase they've done. And what I like about these purchases, they're all for good value. Like 25 mil, 10 mil, 24.7 for Aronson, 20 mil for Tyler Adams. They're in and around the right sort of values. They haven't gone crazy with what they've paid. But we can't get away from the fact they're probably their two best players in the summer. Rafinha and Calvin Phillips. Now, the only saving grace they've got there is the money they got for them. They got good dollar. 55 mil for Rafinha, 50 mil for Man City. When those offers come in, a club like Leeds, you kind of got to take them. They had a net spend of just under minus 2 million. So they lost 2 million. They could have spent more. They could have spent more. They probably didn't want to bring in more names because they'd already made quite a big overhaul. Maybe they want to keep some in the back pocket in case, A, the manager doesn't work out and a new manager wants to bring in players, or want to reinforcements in January, which is probably a good strategy when you think about the fact their Premier League status isn't exactly, nailed on. They don't want to be too risky. I do wonder if they've left themselves a little bit light up front. I know Rodrigo's been playing there, but he's out at the moment. Bamford's always out. And Dan James has played there a fair bit recently. He's gone on loan to Fulham. So I know they've got a couple of young strikers, but have they got enough in that department? Is their defence strong enough? Could they have done more? Maybe. That's why I've got some concerns. The next team I have some concerns for is Crystal Palace. They haven't had a stinker of a window, but they've had a bit of a non-event of a window. Unlike Fulham and Leeds, who've really gone out and done some business and tried to do things, I don't feel like Palace really tried. 21 mil for Czech Decore, the only real investment of note. Sam Johnson's a decent option in goal. Chris Richards, again, from Bayern Munich, sounds great, but is he actually that good? It remains to be seen in the Premier League. The main thing for Palace is they've kept on to the likes of Zaha, which was rumoured. Chelsea wanted him. He's always rumoured every window to go somewhere. They kept hold of him. They kept hold of Eze. Could they have got Conor Gallagher back in maybe from Chelsea? That would have been great. He was so good for them last year. And yeah, they haven't lost anyone huge. And I think they've got a good setup. Vieira seems to know what he's doing. I wrongly called that in my Premier League predictions last year that I thought he was going to struggle. But he's definitely got it switched on. So maybe he doesn't feel like he needs to add a lot. I just don't see them kicking on and improving on last year based on the business they have done. In total, Crystal Palace spent about 27 million net. They've not been too brave, but maybe in this post-pandemic era, that's what we should expect from most teams. And there's one more team I've got some concerns for, and they were the most active team in the window. That team, of course, is Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest. They have gone ham this window. They put the ham in Nottingham. They've basically bought everyone they could possibly buy. If you jump over to this website here, you can see their net spend is 135 basically million. A lot of money. That's probably more than they'll get if they finish bottom of the Premier League. They need to get quite outside the relegation spots to make that money back. It's a big investment. It's ambitious, which I like. I praise the ambition. But if we actually look at the people they've bought and the money they've paid, I have some concerns. Morgan Gibbs-White. Sure, why not? Get him in. 42 mil. How much? In fact, hang on. In the words of Barry Fry himself.
How much?
How much? It's a lot of money in it for Morgan Gibbsy Whitey. Come on, son. Half it and I'm interested. Maybe a little bit extra, maybe a little 25er. I'm interested. 42, get out of my office. I'm not saying he won't be good. I'm just saying it's a lot of money for a man who's not played that much Premier League football, really. Cheick Kouyaté, solid Premier League buy. He won't do you any harm. Emmanuel Dennis, decent pickup from relegated Watford. I don't mind it. There's lots of players, and in isolation, each purchase seems like a good one. Neco Williams is another good one from Liverpool. Good young player, 17 mil. Not a bad deal for both parties, you have to say. Dean Henderson on loan, I like it. Jesse Lingard, the big one, on a free. Yes, they're paying him silly money, but on a free, you can kind of justify it. And even people like Lodi on loan, Bolly from Wolves. There's a whole team and some you can make from their purchases. But I have concerns because it's a lot of players to get to play together. We talk about gelling for a reason. Can they make it work? I'm not saying they can't, because I actually predicted them to finish, I think, 15th for my Premier League predictions video. It's just, as a window, it's very ambitious, maybe too ambitious. I might have liked to have seen 3 or 4 less players come in, and maybe that money spent on some higher calibre players. But I do like the fact they looked at their team and they said, look, we want to stay in this league. We're a big club, Nottingham Forest, big history. How do we do that? They've looked at their squad and they've backed the manager, assuming these purchases were his idea, and they have said, we need to do a serious overhaul. And they've done it. Have they done too much in one go? I don't know. I'm not saying it's a terrible window. I'm just saying it's a risky window. There's no guarantee of success. I've given Bournemouth a stinker, right? But if Bournemouth and Forest were to both go down, it's Forest that have had the stinker because the amount of money they've spent, and they've got to pay that back next year in a league where they don't get the same amount of money. It's a kind of window where if it keeps them in the Prem for a long time, amazing. Well done, boys. And if the players particularly stay there and provide good value, great. But if they go down after this window, much like Fulham did a few years ago and they spent 100 mil, do you remember? If they go down with this window versus a Bournemouth who went down without investing anywhere near that, Bournemouth are way better off because that 100 plus mil they made from going in the Prem, it's in their back pocket. They can invest it on getting back up on the training ground, on facilities. Forest will be in debt. So without knowing the exact details of how they're financing it at Forest, the risk is bigger, the reward could be bigger, but I have some concerns. Let's move on. Into the average at best category, and in this section I'm going to throw Aston Villa into the mix. Why, I hear you ask, are they average at best? Let me tell you. They've spent a net spend of 24 million. They've lost 25, basically, million, which isn't bad. You know, you make that's what they're doing on transfers, but as a club, they'll be making money from being in the league, full stop. So that's not a bad amount to invest. It's not an expensive window for Villa, let's put it that way. When you consider they got Philippe Coutinho on 17 mil, yes, he's not a spring chicken anymore, but still, that's good value, I think. And Diego Carlos, now he's got injured and he's going to be out for a while, which is a real shame. We've got to look at the deal they've done, and that's a good deal. A lot of teams wanted Diego Carlos not too long ago. I think Gerrard, at the start of the summer at least, was using his star factor to attract players, and he's worked well. Towards the end of the window, they brought in people like Dendoncker, Bednarak, kind of Premier League, sort of proven, maybe not world-class players, but players that have done okay for their respective clubs over the last few years in Wolves and Southampton. Bednarak probably wouldn't have come in if Diego Carlos hadn't got injured. But they've taken players from teams around them. It's looking like Villa could have a difficult season. It's looking like Stevie G's days could be numbered if they don't start picking up points. But they did just get a big draw against Man City. In terms of players out, though, we've got to look at people like Matt Targett going to Newcastle. If Newcastle want him and he's going to play at Newcastle, probably got a role he could have played at Villa, although they've got Lucas Digne now, of course. Chukwuemeka, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, but he's a very hotly tipped youngster and he's gone to Chelsea. We'll look at Chelsea's sort of habit of buying young players from clubs around them soon. But you do have to worry if that was someone they should have kept hold of. He might have forced the hand. He might have said, I want to go. And they might have had no power in the situation. They got 20 mil out of it at least. But by all accounts, he could be a future star. But in general, I'm going to say it's an average window for Villa. I'm not going to say it's a bad team, though. I think their team should be doing better than the results they're getting. The next team I'm putting in the average at best category is Wolves. Okay, Wolverhampton Wanderers are going in. Why? Some of you will be surprised. They've actually spent 71, nearly 72 million net. Fair amount of money, 122, nearly 123 million spent. But they got some decent players for that. Matheus Nunes looks to be the real deal. However, 42 mil, they did lay out a substantial amount. Obviously, they love their Portuguese players. Guedes, Hwang Hee-chan was already there last year. He's made that permanent. This big lad they just got, 15.5 million. I think he's like 6'7" or something. I think he's just done his ACL early doors. That's unlucky because he looked like he could have been a player. Nathan Collins has been playing well as well from Burnley, relegated Burnley, of course. There's some half-decent additions there. They got a bit unlucky with the Kaladzic one. But then I've also got to give him credit for getting 42.5 million for Morgan Gibbs-White, a man who clearly wasn't really in their plans. If you're getting 40 mil plus for someone who's not in your plans, you're doing a good job. Cody's gone out on loan. Again, he wasn't really in the new centre-back plans, the way they're trying to do things now. They've got 13 mil for Dendoncker, as we just talked about, to go into Villa. It's not a bad window. It's just I'm not convinced Wolves have enough. Right now, they look like they don't concede goals, which is great. But just like last year, they're having a problem scoring them as well. Apparently, they've got Diego Costa on trial with them right now. He can sign on a free. They need more additions up front. So we'll see if Diego Costa coming in changes things. If he plays and scores, maybe he can upgrade their window a bit more. Okay, into the decent section. The first team I'm putting in here might surprise you, but it's going to be Chelsea. Now, Chelsea have spent a lot of money. The most, in fact, I believe, if we go to the top of our expenditure leaderboard here, a net spend just higher than Man United, 205.7 million. 250 mil went out the door. They bought in 44 million back. Now, why haven't I put Chelsea higher? Well, it's not just about who they bought in and who they've let go. It's about the money they've spent. So Cucurella, good addition, nicked him from Man City last minute. 60 million, though, on a player who I'm not even convinced starts in their best team now. Once Chilwell's back, we saw what he could do off the bench last week against West Ham. I would play him over Cucurella. So 60 mil for a potential bench warm-up. Yeah, they need a deep squad, I know. I think maybe they got swayed by nicking someone away from City. Speaking of nicking someone from City, Raheem Sterling, 47.5 million. It's not bad, is it? It's not a bad bit of business. It's a lot of money for someone who's not, in the early 20s anymore, but it's taking someone away from Man City who should come good. Koulibaly, another good buy, but 33 mil for a man in his 30s. They needed centre-backs, and that's something that's kind of the theme of their transfer window. We already talked about Chukwuemeka from Villa. Fofana, 75 mil. So, in my opinion, the reason I'm downgrading them a little bit window-wise is I think they panicked a bit because partly they're affected by the embargo last year. I get that. But they lost, obviously, Rudiger. They lost Christensen on free transfers. And they've had to spend big to get what could be perceived as improvements on those players, although I did think Rudiger was very good. But they've spent big. Fofana is a good purchase in the sense that he's young. If he stays fit and plays for 10 years, that money is well worth it. Koulibaly, you won't get the same value for him, although look how long Thiago Silva's been playing for. He's doing all right. The Aubameyang one I have concerns about. This man has mercenary written all over his forehead as far as I'm concerned. Does he score goals? Yes, he actually scored quite a decent amount at Barcelona. We know what he did at Arsenal, but it doesn't tend to end well with this man, in my opinion. I think they've needed a striker last minute. They've gone from, I think they've given him a 2-year deal. I'd be surprised if he's scoring goals throughout this whole 2-year section. That's my prediction. He might even start scoring some goals pretty soon. But they had Lukaku, they had Werner. This stinks of something not working in their former transfer policy. Because if you go to their outs, Werner out, I know he wasn't necessarily the most popular player. I know he was perceived to be maybe not good enough, but he did help them win the Champions League, and they've not done good business on him in the sense of they've paid double what they've sold him for. So they've lost money there on the Werner deal. That has to be looked at. Palmieri to West Ham isn't a bad sell, considering they've got so many left-backs. I know Alonso went out to Barcelona as part of the Aubameyang deal as well. But they lost Christensen on a free. We lost Rudiger on a free. Lukaku's gone out on a loan. I mean, they're going to lose money on that deal, that's for sure. And we know he's going to score goals again in Italy as well. I feel like with their last-minute attempts to get a striker, and Aubameyang and all this stuff, they could have made Lukaku work. I know you have to play a certain way with Lukaku, and I think the damage was done when he did that article, and him and Tuchel's relationship kind of broke down. That's probably what's happened there. But yeah, the reason I'm only giving Chelsea as decent and not higher is just because the amount of money they've spent, and I'm not convinced their team is loads better. I'm just looking at some of the exits here. They've got 10 mil for Billy Gilmour. It's not terrible if he wasn't going to play. Barkley released, another example of an English player they snapped up years ago and ruined the career of pretty much by not giving him enough game time. Zakaria on loan from Juve. Was he in their plans all along? Was that a last-minute panic? I don't know. See how he gets on. Obviously, they've had some issues in the midfield. Kante injured at the moment. This lad's a youngster that could be impactful in the future. A couple of youngsters off other clubs as well. Eddie Beach from Southampton, Omari Hutchinson from Arsenal, Chukwuemeka from Villa, as we talked about. They love to snap up these young players from rival clubs. Not even rival clubs. Clubs they're superior to, really. They've spent the most, and I don't think they had the best window. I don't think they've got the best value. What they've done is better than just not replacing players. If they just played with Chalobah and Malang Sarr, who they loaned out instead, in defence of Thiago Silva this year, they might have struggled. So I do think the new owners have invested, and I rate that. I just think maybe they might have overspent in a couple of areas. Okay, the next club going in the decent category is Everton, believe it or not, with a net spend of just 24.5 million. It's not terrible. Now, a lot of the reason for that is they sold Richarlison. They got a good bit of money for him. They got 60 million from Tottenham, which, when you remember how much they paid for him in the first place, they kind of had to get that amount, or else it was going to be a mare, wasn't it? But they got 60 mil from Spurs. In terms of other exits, there's no one apart from maybe Dele Alli, you could say, is a bit of a mare, only because he hasn't worked out at all. Another man didn't work out was Gabamin, but he's barely played for them, so they won't miss him. They sent out Andre Gomez as well on loan. So a lot of centre midfield talent leaving the club, but they brought back Idrissa Gueye, a player who was very popular with Everton when he was there previously. James Garner was someone that was fairly sought after, the young Man United player. Could Man United have made him work? I don't know. They've got Maupay from Brighton. They've got McNeil from relegated Burnley. Tarkowski from relegated Burnley. They've got Cody from Wolves, who is a Liverpool lad. Onana is a player that West Ham were linked with. They spent a bit of money on him, but centre mid and centre back has been reinforced, which is what Everton needed to do. They've got a proper striker in, so now when Calvert-Lewin's out, which he seems to be a lot at the moment, Maupay can score goals at this level. These are all kind of very Everton signings. They're not signings like a few years ago when they're bringing in, James Rodriguez and everyone thought they were going to kick on. But it should be enough to keep him in the league. Frank Lampard's the next big question of whether he's going to remain there as manager. But I don't think it's a terrible window. I think it could have been worse. It started off with Richarlison leaving, and they've brought in people. And they've got free transfers from Tarkowski. They've not spent crazy money anywhere. The next club I'm putting in the decent category is Southampton, right? Now, you might not have heard of a lot of the players they've brought in. I hadn't really either on a lot of occasions. But by all accounts, some of the young players they've brought in are future world beaters. I mean, this man, they brought in for 12 million from Man City. He played against Chelsea at the start of the season, and they apparently offered 50 million for him in the same window he just joined Southampton on. There would have been a 38 mil profit, but of course they rejected it. Bazanu, another young Man City player. They brought up quite a few players from Man City. They got Edozie from Man City, Larios from Man City. They've basically bought the Man City youth team, all for not insignificant amounts of money, when you consider some of these boys won't play too much, probably. But if they can go on to achieve what they're tipped to achieve, they could make a lot of profit on that. Likewise, Maitland-Niles on loan from Arsenal. Kaletakar, the Croatian centre-back, is someone West Ham have been linked with a lot over the last few windows. Bazanu's already come in as a starting goalkeeper. Joe Aribo's made an impact from Rangers. Lavia's made the biggest impact, although he's injured as well. Bela Kotchap has been playing. They've kind of snuck under the radar this window, Southampton. Romeu has gone to Girona in Spain, I think, after 8 years at Southampton. Shane Long's finally moved on. Bednarek obviously went to Villa, but they've got some new centre-halves now. So I actually think Southampton's squad is coming together. And if they can keep it together and they can not, have any disasters like get relegated over the next year or two, some of these youngsters could come through, blossom, and Southampton could become a beautiful little flower on the south coast. So it's a decent window by my books. But they have spent money. 66 million, to be precise. No income whatsoever. Right, the next team in my decent category, because there is more. Brentford are going in there. Now, we know Brentford aren't massive spenders, but they have, in fairness to them, spent a net spend of 42.2 million here. Aaron Hickey is an addition I like from Bologna. He's playing. He's going to be a big player for them, 18 mil. He's a Scottish international. It's a very Brentford purchase. Ben Mee is another good addition. Burnley had to offload a lot of players, obviously, when they got relegated, and he's come in. He's going to add something to their defence. But this is the one I really like. I'm a big fan of Mikael Damsgaard. We haven't really seen him impact Brentford yet. Brentford's been playing okay without him, to be fair. But when he gets going, he's going to be decent. Obviously, they had Christian Eriksen for a little bit last year, didn't they, on a short-term deal. They had to fill that creative hole in midfield when he moved on to Man United. Damsgaard is a like-for-like replacement, albeit younger, a fellow Dane. 16.7 million for him could end up being one of the best buyers you've ever seen. If he fulfills his potential, he could be transferring to someone for 50 million plus in the next few years. And the thing about Brentford is, everyone knows the way they run things, right? I'm just looking through their departures. No one significant, apart from Eriksen, who was never really going to stay, has moved on. And the thing about Brentford is, everyone knows their players have prices. Like, if someone hits their valuation for Ivan Toney, they will sell him. They have a very strict philosophy they stick to. Let's say they value Toney at 40 million. If Arsenal offered 40 million, Brentford would say yes. It's not a case of them trying to hold on to players past their perceived value. And they've managed to hold on to the key individuals at Brentford. Maybe that's the secret at Brentford. Maybe there isn't too many key individuals. Maybe it's all one big puzzle and people can interchange as and when needs be. But looking at current form, it is Toney that stands out, but they've still got him. And that's why I think they've had a decent window. Brighton next. Brighton know what they're doing, lads, all right? First and foremost, look at this. They're the best window in the Prem in terms of lacking of spending money. They made 60 million, okay? Leicester were not far off that, but after that, there's a big drop-off. 60 million profit in this day and age is unheard of, especially when you consider the way they've started the season. Now, when you make that sort of money, the first thing you've got to do is, right, who they lost? And they must have lost some game changers, right? Let's see who they've lost. Cucurella and Bissouma. That's where the lion's share of the money has come from, okay? Yes, Bissouma's gone into Spurs. He's going to play at Spurs. He's going to make Spurs better. Cucurella's gone to Chelsea. I've already talked about how he might not even start in the best team. He'll get plenty of games over the season, but 60 million is a price you've kind of got to accept. And the thing about Brighton is a little bit like Leicester used to a few years ago when they moved someone on, they had a ready-made replacement. Brighton seemed to always anticipate the next departure very well. I was surprised, though, that they let Neil Maupay go, because I've always thought they didn't have loads of depth up front, but the boys they've got are doing it for them. Pascal Gross has been scoring goals. Danny Welbeck's been doing a job. In terms of players coming in, Billy Gilmour at 10 mil could end up being a very good addition if he fulfills his potential. Estupiñán is the man who's been playing left-back for Cucurella. That's 45 mil profit on a left-back swap there. Levi Colwell's only a loan, and we haven't seen him loads, but he's supposed to be the next big thing, a centre-half. I'm surprised Chelsea haven't kept him on, but at the same time, they haven't sold him, maybe because they know that. If he can play at Brighton, become familiar with Brighton, and they end up keeping him, which is a big if when he's on loan, that would be an amazing bit of business. But mainly, the reason I've put Brighton in the decent category is just because of the fact they've made 60 million and they haven't seemed to have got any worse as a football team. And that's an amazing achievement. Right, I have one more team in the decent category. You might be surprised to see them in here. But it is Liverpool. Why have I only given Liverpool decent? Or maybe you don't think Liverpool even had a decent window. Let's assess it. First of all, as we've become familiar with in the last few years, they don't splash a lot of cash, Liverpool. Now, they spend a lot of money on Nunez particularly, but overall, they have made only a 4.5 million loss. That is significant for a club like Liverpool. When you compare that to the teams they're in competition with, like the Chelseas of the world, the Man United, how much money they've spent, it's amazing, really, isn't it? So how have they done it? 6.5 million on Calvin Ramsey, 85 million on Nunez, a lot of money. Carvalho, Melo. What I like about those signings, maybe with the exception of Ramsey, they're all going to play a lot of football for them. Melo came in last minute, maybe because of midfield injury issues. I would have loved to have seen him gone big for Jude Bellingham. We might see it again in the future. That's a transfer I think would be amazing for both parties. But Ramsey could be the Trent replacement if Trent gets any sort of injury. Ramsey can fill in. I like Ramsey, by the way. But they've not done loads of business. And Liverpool don't tend to. They've got their kind of mould of a team. It's very specific, the way it plays. It hasn't deviated a lot over the Klopp era. And they just find people to fit in when opportunities arise to replace people. And they've made money. They've made money in good ways, like Neco Williams for 16 mil. 15.5 million for Minamino. These are both players that weren't playing. But of course, the big departure is this man right here. Sadio Mane for 35.5 million is gone. Now, is that good value for someone at his age? It's not bad, but Mane's a world beater. It doesn't matter how much it costs. Looking back, you probably think they should have done more to keep him. They gave Salah the big contract. Maybe they weren't prepared to give Mane what he wanted in terms of contract. Maybe Mane just wanted a fresh challenge. That could be what it is. But they're looking like they're struggling to replace him. No one in that front three is playing the same way as a result of the Mane departure. He was empowering so much of it. Suddenly Salah doesn't look the player he used to be when he hasn't got Mane on the opposite side. So for the fact that Mane went, I can't upgrade him more than decent, but the people they've brought in are good. Darwin Núñez could be an unbelievable player. They haven't got him cheap, but it's a statement purchase from Liverpool. And when you consider they have only barely lost money, just gone into a net negative spend, it's a decent window for Liverpool. They could have done more, though. They could have got a big name midfielder. That's what they were lacking, in my opinion. Okay, we're moving into the double decent category, and you're never going to guess this. West Ham are going in. Lions. Some of you might have issue with this. You always have issue with wherever I put my club. It's a difficult one, right? But let's look at it. We have shown ambition. Look at this net spend from a club like West Ham. Now, I'm not always saying big net spend is good, as you know, but for West Ham to stamp their authority and say, we are spending moolah, 147 million to be precise, net. We spent 163, almost 164. That's crazy money for West Ham. Did we get good value for money? Well, Skamaka, 35.5 million. He should be our starting striker, in my opinion. He does improve our attacking options. We've needed that for a long time. We still probably need another striker, to be honest. But him and Antonio, they can, cover things. Bowen can play up there too. Areola's loan made permanent, 10 mil, about right. Aguero, 30 million. I've got no idea on this lad. I'm not going to lie to you. We spent a lot of money on him, which makes me think he's highly tipped. They think he's good. I have not seen it yet. He's been injured. But if he is good, that's massive for us because we've bought a lot of good central defensive reinforcements. Flynn Downs, again, not seen a lot of him, 12 mil. I know he's a local West Ham boy, so he might like that move. He might play for the badge. Cornet, I like. Burnley have offloaded so many players, but that's a good one. I like Cornet. I like what I've seen of him already. 17.5 million doesn't seem too expensive. Kehrer at 10 mil from PSG, a man who's played more games for Germany since Hansi Flick became manager than any other player. That's got to mean something. And when you consider we paid 10 mil for him and we sold Diop for 15 mil, we've made 5 mil on that centre-back exchange. And that's good business. Palmieri from Chelsea, 15 mil. I wouldn't want it to spend any more than that. I would have liked to have get him maybe for 10 mil, but we did need left-back reinforcements. Cresswell's shown a few signs. He's on the decline last few years. Masuaku's gone. It's a good addition of a player. I just think we maybe spent a bit too much. But Lucas Paqueta. Apparently, it's Lucas Paqueta, by the way. That's how you say it, because the accent's on the A, so it's Paqueta. 51 mil. Record signing for West Ham. Massive addition. Time will tell. It's one of them where when you spend that much money, he's got to be mustard. He's got to be very, very good. He could be. He just could be. But I can't tell you if he will be. Really, I'm giving West Ham this rating because of ambition. You know, unfortunately, we didn't show this ambition. We're in the Europa League last year, or at least we didn't have the money to spend at January to reinforce us and maybe get us to kick on into the Champions League. We really needed to, but we have done it this year. I think the addition of the new part owner from the Czech Republic coming in has helped. I think he's put some funds into it. But as a West Ham fan who doesn't get to see this sort of ambition very much, that's why I'm giving us a double decent rating. And I think the players we've bought improve us in every position pretty much. We've got a deeper squad. Still not deep enough, mind. But the elephant in the room is we've kept Declan Rice. We've still got Declan Rice. Have we spent the money we think we're going to get from him next window in advance? Maybe. And that would just mean next window is a stinker. And I'll be happy to say that if that's what happens. But what if this ambition allows us to kick on? I know it hasn't come through in the league just yet, but give it time. If this ambition allows us to kick on, become a Champions League club, maybe that's too much, but become a regular Europa League club, could that be enough to keep Rice? The next club in the double decent category is Spurs, right? I'm putting Spurs in there as well. A net expenditure of 118 million. They've spent money. Conte's been backed. That was the big question. Was he going to be backed? He's been backed. Perisic is a good addition, someone that knows how to play for Conte. 33, so he's not the best age, but a couple seasons out of him will be decent. Bissouma for 35 mil. Lots of teams wanted him, supposedly from Brighton. I think he will be good. Richarlison's a really good buy. They couldn't have got him for much less than 60 mil because of what Everton have paid for him realistically. So he's got to justify that price tag, but it already looks like he's going to, particularly as Son's a bit off form at the moment. Who needs Son when you've got Richarlison? I love Son. Longley, another centre-half reinforcement. DJ Spence, I don't think we're going to see him play much, but he was a very good breakout year last year for Nottingham Forest on loan from Middlesbrough. They managed to get him in. And Adoji from Udinese as well. Lots of Serie A talent. Romero's become a permanent signing. And they've still got Harry Kane. That's got to be a massive boost for them. And Ndombele wasn't going to work out under Conte, nor was Lo Celso. Bergwijn wasn't needed. They've offloaded all of them. 26 mil for Bergwijn. They've got 10 mil for Jack Clarke. I don't even know who Jack Clarke is. In general, I would say they have improved. I think they can still improve a little bit more, maybe in the centre-back area. One really good centre-back addition could make Spurs a quality side. But they're looking decent, let's be honest. They haven't lost in the Premier. The next team in the double decent category is going to be Newcastle. Not too many teams left now, but why am I giving Newcastle double decent? They spent 122 million. We know they had money to spend. They could have spent more. They spent 122 million, but I like the way they spent it. Matt Targett was on loan there, already working out. They liked him. They paid 15 mil for him. You don't want to spend more than that, but we'll go with it. Nick Pope for 10 mil, another Burnley offload. Good, solid buy. Botman, solid buy. By all accounts, he's going to be big for them. Alexander Isaac, 63 mil. What I like about their business is they've not done a Forest and gone, we've got all this money to spend, let's get excited. They're just being very measured with their approach. They're going, how can we improve this team? They've got a goalkeeper that comes in as their number one, improved them. They've got a centre-half that can come in as a new centre-half, improves them. And they've got Isaac, who no doubt is going to improve them. So they already had the start of a very nice squad with the likes of Guimaraes in there, St. Maximin. They haven't gone crazy since they got the new owners, but I actually quite like the approach they're taking. And they have held on to all their big name players. They haven't lost anyone. No one's really coming in for Newcastle players right now because you're not going to get them. Unless they've got a chance to go to a top-class team and there's nothing the owners can do, the owners don't need the money. I like the Newcastle approach. Double decent. Okay, next club in the double decent category. Man United now went back and forth in this one because like Chelsea, they've spent an awful lot of money. Look at this. Minus 205 million. Basically the same as Chelsea, actually. That's a big net spend, and there's only a few clubs really that can afford to do that. Man United are one of them. They've definitely backed the new manager, that's for sure. But finally, they've addressed the big elephant in the room, which was the centre-mid situation. They bought in Casemiro. 70 mil for a player of his age is a lot. But you're talking about a man who's got cupboards for Champions League trophies, right? He knows what to do. We haven't even seen him impact the starting lineup yet, because since he come in, Man United have been winning anyway. But if he can get solidly placed in that centre midfield for Man United and it comes good, it would be a massive buy. Christian Eriksen is also playing deeper for them at the moment. So straight away, that could be their new centre-mid partnership with Bruno ahead of them. Malacia looks like a really good buy. 14.7 million. He's holding down that left-back spot really well right now. Lisandro Martinez, a lot of money they've spent there. A lot of money. Straight away, you look at his height as a centre-half. You think, is that somewhere they can expose? But if they play the right way with him, he can be very good. We've seen, smaller centre-halves work out. Cannavaro was only like 5'8". So it can be done. I think what we've seen is the difference between him and Maguire. They're basically opposites as centre-halves. And when you play with Maguire, to get the best out of him, you have to play a certain way. That's what England do. That's why he's good for England. Man United don't want to play that way. Martinez does suit the way Man United want to play. So I think we probably are seeing the beginning of the end for Maguire. I mean, he was linked with Chelsea at one point, who do play a back three. You could argue he'd be more successful there. That could still be a transfer we see in the future. Antony's the big one, though, isn't it? And it is the big one. 86 mil, a lot of money, but he's already made an impact, scored in his debut. And I first thought that Ten Hag's transfer policy was a bit worrying. It seemed like he was just going for Eredivisie players he knew from the Dutch league. And I felt like, were these players who egos he could control, who he wasn't able to attract bigger names. But maybe he's just got the best of the best from that league. Maybe he knows these guys are that good. Time will tell, and it will probably be what defines his time at Man United if these players come good, particularly Antony. Players he's managed before. If he can't get the best out of them, then he probably overspent on them, or the club overspent on him. But they have finally properly addressed the problems. I mean, they've spent money in the past, Man United, but they've always left areas that need to be looked at, mostly central midfield for many years now. Finally addressed it. I have to acknowledge that. And in terms of players out, I think Pogba leaving is actually a good thing. I mean, he's injured at the moment anyway. I think he was a bit of a negative influence in the dressing room. He didn't play that much. Yes, he had world-class performances in him, but how many times a year did we see them? We've cleared a lot of people off the wage bill. Lingard, Mata, Matic, Cavani's gone. Bailly and Tellez have gone out on loan as well. The Ronaldo one's interesting. He wanted to leave. He's not impacting the team a great deal at the moment, but they held firm and didn't let him go. That's big. Maybe because no one could afford his wages, no one came in for him. I don't know. But player power did not win this time. Picked up 25 mil for Pereira and Garner combined. Midfielders that you could argue could one day prove to be worth a lot more than that, but never going to happen at Man United because they're never going to get the minutes. They picked up the money there. Dean Henderson loaned out again. De Gea did start the season poorly. That's the only sort of question mark there is, do they need another goalkeeper? I know they brought into Bravka as a number 2, but is De Gea the one for them long term? But in general, because they have finally addressed that centre mid spot and brought in some quality that I think is going to make them better, and they will be up there in the top 4 or thereabouts this year, I think. It's double decent. Right, guys, we have 2 teams left, and I'm going to only put one of them in the double decent category and one of them in the elite window category. Can you guess who it's going to be? I'll give you a few seconds to guess. And now I'm going to do it. In the double decent category is Man City. I'm putting them in double decent. When you consider they've bought in Haaland, that's the big one, right? And they've actually made a profit this window. It's crazy. They've bought in arguably the best footballer on the planet right now, certainly the best goal scorer, and they've made money in the process. 18 million to be precise. How have they done that? Well, the way they've done it is by offloading some big players. 47.5 million for Sterling, not bad, but he's gone to a rival. Let's not forget that. He's gone to a rival in the Prem. That's really something you want to avoid as a top-level Premier League team. Likewise, Gabriel Jesus has gone to Arsenal for 45 million. He could go on to prove himself worth a fair bit more than that. Even though they've made profit on him, he has gone to a rival, and Arsenal are top of the league right now. And Zinchenko went there as well. And the Zinchenko one, I think, backfired on him a little bit, if I'm honest. 32 million, by the way. It's not bad, but he had a very good record at Man City. He was very reliable for them, and he was an out-and-out left-back, something they don't really have at the club right now. Obviously, they got a little bit unlucky with the whole Mendy incident a few years ago. I think they were banking on getting Cucurella, and they didn't get him. Of course, they got Cancelo. Cancelo's world class, so he's not really a left-back. Like, he should be playing right-back, really. But because they haven't got a left-back, he's playing left exclusively now. And he's doing okay. Let's not make any bones about it. But they've got more football coming up. Champions League could be interesting. We'll probably see a bit of Ake over there. Maybe Laporte over there when he comes back. I'm not saying they're in trouble with Man City, by the way. Their team's a joke. Probably the best they've ever had when you consider they've got the out-and-out goal scorer now. I'm just saying the downside of the sales they've made, whilst they've made good money, is they have sold to competition. If Arsenal end up making a title challenge this year, they've brought that on themselves, Man City. They could have avoided it by selling them to other teams. Likewise, I don't know if Chelsea will be up there, but if they are up there, Sterling will be a big part of their season. But let's look at the additions. Okay, we can't talk about Alvarez, because Alvarez actually came in a previous window, even though he's only playing now. But Haaland is the big one, isn't he? 51 million. What a purchase that is. You could easily add 100 mil to that, and it would still be worth it, let's be honest. Calvin Phillips, I have got a bit of an issue with, I'm not going to lie. Whilst it's a big loss for Leeds, which we've already addressed, he will not play that much this year. I would be surprised. He's not going to come in over Rodri. They're not going to play a double pivot. He's going to be playing cup competitions. He's basically the Fernandinho replacement, and 50 mil is a lot of money. They've paid the English premium on that one. Akanji could be a good buy, 15 mil, who was out of contract in the summer for Dortmund. So they've got him early, and that's not a bad addition, another centre-half option. And Sergio Gomez, by the way, could be the answer to their issue at left-back. I mean, he can play every position on the pitch, is what I'm told. Speaking of which, did you know that #United have signed a former Premier League player who has played every position on the pitch? He's played like 28 times in the Premier League. He now plays for #United. Get over to the hashtag channel for more info on that. There's a link in the description. But Sergio Gomez, yeah, interesting. 11 mil. If he reaches his potential, a good utility player like that can be invaluable, particularly for a team like City who like to tinker a lot. But it's still an exceptional window. Any window you get Haaland for any price is a very, very, very good window. I'm just not deciding to call it elite purely because they've strengthened teams around them. And one of the teams they've strengthened is, of course, Arsenal. And I'm deciding to give them elite window classification, the only team that is getting it. Now, they've spent money, almost 100 million net, 97.44 million to be precise, has gone out the door, all things considered. What I like about this is Arteta's been building something slowly. He hasn't gone out and bought loads of players. He's just filled the holes that are needed. The big one was striker. Aubameyang gone, Lacazette gone. Gabriel Jesus is a serious addition at 45 million. He's been playing out of his skin. Feels like he's got a new lease of life, that he knows he's the number one striker now. So he's in there. Marquinhos, I don't know anything about him, so we'll move past him. Matt Turner is the American understudy in goal. Obviously, they've sold out Leno. Vieira, saw my first glimpse of him against United on the weekend, and 34 million is a decent outlay, but he looks okay. I think he could be decent for them. Zinchenko's a great addition. Fantastic addition. They needed a left-back because Kieran Tierney does not stay fit. Whilst he's very good when he plays, he doesn't play enough. So Zinchenko arguably could become the number one left-back. What I like about it is, because he's so versatile, he plays centre mid for Ukraine, when Tierney comes in, Zinchenko can go into midfield. 32 million for a multiple Premier League winner and serial winner is a great bit of business. Not a lot of business, but you don't have to do loads of business to have a great window. If you look at the outs from Arsenal, who have they lost that matters, really? Who have they lost? A couple of loans here and there. Torreira's gone. He wasn't impacting the team. Leno's gone. Ramsdale's number one now. Guendouzi, 10 mil for him. Lacazette was past his best. No one that's left the club would have started. Pepe is the only one you could say was making an impact, albeit off the bench last year, and they did spend an awful lot of money on him. So that deal in isolation from when they first signed him has not ended up working. They didn't get what they wanted out of the money they spent on him. I will agree with that. But I can't ignore the Jesus-Zinchenko combination. Honestly, I think it's a great window from Arsenal. I really do think it's elite. There's a few things here you could play around with. I mean, let me know in the comments if you'd change any of this, if you think I've got any of it way wrong. But I like to have one team at the top, and I've given it to Arsenal. But in terms of the best deal, one-off signing, it is Haaland. Of course it's Haaland for City. He's a joke of a man. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more. Let me know what you thought about the layout of this video. A bit different to normal, but it actually is a bit quicker for me to film them this way because I can basically edit it quicker. So it gets you more videos, hopefully, if I do them like this in the future. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Don't go changing.